Just give me 1 second. We're almost there. Yeah. Okay. Chair Andre, we are live streaming.
Okay, very good. Welcome, everyone, to the May 17th Heritage Richmond Hill meeting. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Councillor Shepherd, who has been appointed to replace Mayor David West on this committee. So welcome. We all welcome you here. So thank you. I'm very, very glad that you are here. I've had the privilege of meeting you many times, and I know you're perfect for this committee. So it feels good. I'm very glad that you're here. So, and I hope you get to meet the rest of the people very soon as well. Tonight's meeting is an electronic meeting being held pursuant to section 238(3) of the Municipal Act 2001. Please note that we have received regrets from committee members for tonight's meeting from Barbara DeMambro, Councillor Silvitz, and James Counter. And who else do we have missing? I have not been keeping track. Ryan, can you help us out there?
To the chair, Dan Kelly.
Dan, okay. Okay, well, hopefully he can join us. Okay. The public had the opportunity to submit written correspondence regarding agenda items by email to the clerk's office. All written correspondence received by noon today would have been included on the agenda, but there was none received. The clerk's office did receive 2 delegation requests for tonight's meeting regarding item 6.1, the draft commemoration plan for 11666 Yonge Street. Those delegations have been listed as agenda items 5.1 and 5.2, and we will meet them quickly in a short time. Okay, as chair of the committee, I will now call the meeting to order. Can I get a mover to adopt the agenda? I see Doris, seconder. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Okay. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Nope. Okay, and I'll assume those who are not on video have none as well. Okay, so seeing none. Okay. Adoption of previous minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting held on March the 1st? Okay, Jenica, thank you. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay. That carries. Okay. And any discussion? Forgot to ask that. Any discussion about last month's meeting? I have a question about the agenda that I meant to ask Pam this afternoon, and forgot as soon as I got off the phone after the Zoom call. The issue on the agenda was about what the provincial government was planning for changing for the Heritage Act. And everything else, I've read other things, what they did, but I didn't.
Thank you.
Let's to jump in and just say that, no, we don't have to worry about it.
He doesn't have a good connection.
Sorry, you cut out there for a little bit. I think you're still.
We didn't hear the question, Madam Chair.
She's no problem.
Yeah, she lost her connection.
Lost her connection. So what we will do right now is we'll just give her a little bit of time to come back. Hopefully it's just a loose connection. This loose wire should come on right back once the internet. There we go.
Mr. Clerk, if we have quorum still, is there not a vice chair that can carry on the meeting while we get the chair back?
Remember, actually the vice chair is Vice Chair DeMambro, who has sent regrets. So based on the procedure bylaw, we are to wait for a period of time, or Once the chair comes back, certainly she could always transfer the chair. But I would certainly give her a little bit of time to come back. Hopefully she's on doing that now. I'll see, maybe I can give her a call. Bear with me for a second, please.
Sure, this is making for a riveting live stream right now. Oh,
Sorry. I think too many other people in the household were using too much bandwidth, so sorry. Okay. Okay, I was asking a question of Pamela and actually of Ryan, if this is an important part of our point in our meeting to see if it is an update on what the provincial government did with the heritage designations.
Sorry, to the chair, I'm not, is this something from the previous minutes, or are you asking?
Yes, it is.
Oh, so while you've approved the minutes and taken the vote, certainly I don't think it's, if Pamela, I don't know if you have an update, certainly you can discuss that. I don't see an issue with that.
Okay.
sure. Yeah, there's been some updates. There's a bill that was brought forward with the that brought forward some of the recommendations in the affordable homes task force. There was none that was heritage specific. It seems like they haven't addressed any of the heritage related recommendations that were part of that report. So
Okay.
I'm not sure whether something's going to go forward in the future, but at this point there is no formal legislation regarding those heritage recommendations.
Okay, thank you. That's what I think we were hoping for, and it just dawned on me that we should get an update of something from the minute. So thank you for that, and sorry for loss of internet. We will proceed on. And Dan, I'm very glad that you could join us tonight. So that's excellent. Okay. Okay. Can I get a motion to receive the extracts of March 9th council meeting? Okay, I see Kadambi. Okay, so that's good. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Good. Okay. We'll now have our delegation. So we have two delegates, Amy Barnes, a heritage consultant, and Michael Roberts, property manager for 11666 Yonge Street. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from you guys. Each delegate will be given 5 minutes to address our committee. Once finished, we will move to agenda 6.1 to hear the verbal update from staff regarding this matter. And yeah, so we will looking forward to hearing your presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ryan, if you could start the PowerPoint, that would be great. So thank you through you, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for having me. My name is Amy Barnes. I'm a project manager with ARA Consultants, and we have been working with my colleague, Michael Roberts, who's on the line as well, who's with Sky Development, who can speak to any issue that I may not be able to speak to about the property. But I'm here to just give you an overview of the heritage impact assessment that we prepared, and to get some feedback from the committee about kind of which direction or some thoughts on what we have proposed, and just some general feedback on the property. So as you'll see on my screen here, 11666 Yonge Street in Richmond Hill is the property that we're speaking to tonight. Next slide, please. I trust you've all read the HIA and are familiar with the property, so I'm just going to go through it fairly quickly. Background of the property, some of the conditions that we observed, the HIA, our proposed conservation strategy and commemoration plan, and then allow for feedback or questions, and then I'll hang on the line to hear your discussion after. Next slide, please. So this is the property, just to give an overview. It's the little building in the bottom there that's kind of sketched in with blue. It's known as Hillcrest and is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act through Bylaw 149-03. We conducted an HIA to examine the proposed removal of the property. A whole array of alternatives were discussed throughout that process and presented in the HIA, which include the retention of it in situ. A structural engineering report was also prepared for this building as well. As you may or may not know, this building has had some significant break-ins and vandalism. It is currently boarded up, and as you likely saw in the HIA, the interior has been stripped back to essentially the lath and plaster and the frame, and there was observed deterioration both interior and exterior. And so the structural engineering report, which is their professional domain, deemed that it was unable to be salvaged in situ and proposed its demolition. So through that and looking at mitigation measures and various alternatives, our HIA came up with various recommendations, including symbolic conservation, which included kind of the subcategories of the conservation and commemoration plan, and a type of salvage plan to be integrated into that. Next slide, please. As part of our assessment, we did do a condition assessment with our conservation specialist. These are the 4 general kind of material-based items that were viewed and had the ability, we thought, to be removed and or reinstated and or used in some type of commemoration plan, or they were deemed salvageable. So the brick masonry, obviously in the comments, you'll see there are not all of it, but there are definitely certain bricks that could be removed and used for future development or as part of the strategy. The limestone lintels, the voussoirs, the sills, the banding, and those keystones, which are around the windows, again, could be removed and salvaged for reuse or recycling, kind of historic salvage there. The slate roof tiles, many were observed to be in excellent condition. Some have had cracking, but the removal of them in a very sensitive manner could allow for their reuse. And lastly, the wooden timbers and frame lumber, and that would be very kind of selective. Some of those parts have kind of been at the whim of some water damage and things like that, vandalism really. Next slide, please. So our proposed conservation and commemoration plan is kind of a 2-part process here based on the client's future use for the property. So the salvage and retention of bricks to be used in a parquet and a pathway. This is kind of an immediate part of the strategy. And then there is the anticipation that there'll be a new development there. And so part of that will be integrated into the new development in the future. That's unknown right now, so we can't comment on what that looks like, just to make that very clear. But there is a desire to put a new construction there. So the salvage and the reuse of those pieces that I had spoke to, if not used for the new construction, should be donated to a historic salvage company. And we also talked about a commemoration panel or plaque, which I'll speak to in a minute. And we're looking for feedback on, we outlined quite a bit of the conservation element already, and we're just looking for a little bit of feedback on that. So next slide, please. So this is kind of the conceptual plan. In this photo, I'm really just trying to show with the green outline there, the area that we're speaking to and kind of the location of the parquet we're speaking to provide connection to the sidewalk and then to the parking lot. And if you go to the next slide, you'll kind of see a very conceptual drawing of the reuse of the brick, some grass area, a little seating area, which would likely, Okay, next slide, please. The various elements of the plan here are, you actually probably got most of it in the visual there, so you can go to the next slide. We had a little bit more detail about the types of plants that we are looking to do, but really I'd like to go to the next slide, which is where I'm hoping to get some feedback on these types of panels. So there's the upright one, and then there's the leaning one. These are 2 very different ways you can go about Commemoration, definitely a preference on style. We would look to work with the committee on their desires for that. Text and the images would come back to your committee for review, and we based on historical imagery and historical fact about the property. And then the location of it is also something we thought the committee may want to weigh in on. So next slide, please. Thank you. There we go. Happy to answer any questions. And as I said, my colleague, Michael Roberts, who's the property manager for the property, is also on hand to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amy. I wish that 5 minutes went by very quickly. So yeah. So,
You know what? I should have asked you to merge our 2 5 minutes together, but that's okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So are there questions from people there? So any questions, any comments from our committee? Reka.
Yes. Hi, through you, Madam Chair. Just because Amy's presentation was, she ran out of time. Amy, can you tell me a little bit more about the plans for the parquet, specifically what you have in mind in terms of what it's going to look like in the finished product?
Sure. So essentially it was the circular kind of center part with some benches and some native shrubs and plantings around it, and then grassed area. So if anyone knows the site, there's already a fairly heavy retaining wall that kind of lifts the parking lot up, and then some space between the other parking lots. So we'd be occupying a large area there for a space to sit. And this was something that had been also thought to play a role in a space where people who are shopping or those employees who are taking, a break, and some flow could go through there in terms of connecting to sidewalks and to connecting to parking lots there. This is, the circular nature of the reused bricks, and then having some seating areas. Now we also have, like I said, wanted the option to put in a panel somewhere. So we're certainly open to hearing comments about where that is best suited. We can work with the committee if there's a strong desire either way, but that was kind of the first component, is this parquet is the immediate part of it. And then there's also been a discussion about storing and salvaging. As you saw in our HIA, we provided the ways in which you need to properly store these historic materials to ensure they don't rot, or they're kept in the highest outcome for reuse, which the property owners have also been very open to in terms of maybe a future development and integrating those back into a future development.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Questions, comments from anyone else? Doris, and then Helen. Doris?
Thank you very, very much, Madam Chair. Amy, thank you for the presentation. I'm just interested, I know that you've asked for our input in terms of, where we would put a commemorative plaque around the parquet and that, but I'm interested in your perspective and what your recommendation would be as to where that commemorative plaque or that board would be.
Yeah, I personally think that in between, so if this is the circle and it goes to the sidewalk and then to the parking lot, my suggestion would be somewhat in the middle between those two, so that for anyone who it does draw an interest in to come in and sit and look around. It also, the orientation that way would be facing where the building would have been. And so to have an image right there that would allow the public to kind of visualize it right in front of them is another option, is kind of, I think, part of a way that is, it's a nice touch, if you will. And then if it's visible to the parking lot, it also just people might just see something, and I'm personally a person who goes and reads plaques. So there must be some people out there who go and read plaques. So, if they see something there, I think it's really I think that's the highest way you can attract attention to it. And then as far as the plaque goes, the slanted one and the upright one, I personally, again, this is just a personal perspective. I think the slanted ones allow for a view and a vista to go there. So if you are sitting in the parquet, you're not blocked in one direction by, a large board. So that's just something that we keep in mind when we are doing these types of strategies about which one is best suited. If it's at the front of a trail, maybe a tall one's wiser, but if you're sitting in a space, maybe a lower profile one is is generally a better fit. But again, we're also open to hearing any feedback on that.
Okay. Helen wanted a comment question from Helen, and then I see Al.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Amy, for the presentation. I just need a little bit clarification on, did you, when you see the site, is the packet not selected where it's located?
Yeah, so the house will be removed, and using the salvage pieces, it would go in the same location as where the house is right now.
Oh, okay. So it's the same location. Okay.
That's right.
And the plaque would be on the same location as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a comment or a suggestion. You show the bench, right? And on the you're also going to salvage the some lumber from the window, from some, right? Would you be maybe just consider using those lumber for making those bench, or
the intention was to use as much of the material in creating this particular area.
okay.
So if the wood is acceptable to be sanded down and create this, there's just one bench there, but at the end of the day, I visualize a couple of benches there. It could even be three benches there.
Okay.
You know, so yes, whatever we can salvage to put in this particular area is, to me, is very important, because it recognizes the heritage of what was originally there.
Yes,
many
thank
years
you.
ago. Yeah.
And it's also environmental, conscious.
Oh, it's environmentally friendly. That's one thing. Yeah,
Materials.
we strive for in our company. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
By extension of that, we also tend to do the legs of the plaque, or integrate it into the plaque if there is going to be wooden features. Plaques obviously need to have longevity with weather, but sometimes there's an opportunity to do that as well. And if there is, I'm sure that they'll be open to that.
And also the plaque, the way maybe when you reuse the material, respect the shape, or the texture of the material for those plaques structure.
Okay.
Okay.
Al, I see your hand raised.
Yes, Madam Chair, just a couple of questions. First of all, I wanted to be clear that I understood. Are the options reusing the material and making this parquet, and then an alternative of maintaining the material for use on a future project? That's my first question to clarify.
So I don't know, Michael, if you wanted to answer this, I'm happy to answer it, but.
Actually, we ourselves, when we were looking at the big picture of this whole project, was if we could utilize most of the material to create a park, I'm going to use the terminology of park setting. We felt that's what we'd like to do. Any of the materials that we can't use, of course, would be stored in a heated and cooled facility, so that none of the materials disintegrate, and incorporate, as we said earlier, as Amy said earlier, into other projects at this particular site. But yes, we would like to try to utilize as many of these materials in this concept as possible.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, my next question, I think from Mr. Roberts' comments, I think I understand what he's going to say, but my question is, what are their recommendations in terms of usage? Because I gather Mr. Roberts is is responsible for the site, and I always believe whoever is responsible for the site has a best understanding of how best to use the site. So is that your recommendation, that it be used to make this parquet?
Yeah, that's what we discussed as a team within our company. The best solution was to take the materials to create this park setting. There also was mentioned earlier, if we were built another building here, that any materials that were left over would be stored in a facility, that we could use those into that concept, whatever it may be. I don't personally think anything will be built in the near future, but there's two full plans here. One is to use in the park setting. One is also to take materials and put it into a structure in the future.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you. And just my last comment about the display. The only concern I have with a slanted display is that, of course, we get snow, and I'd be concerned that in the winter, the display would be covered. The other concern I have is that if it's slanted at a certain height, depending on the height, we have to consider people of all abilities, and somebody with limited mobility that may be in a wheelchair would have difficulty viewing the plaque or viewing the display depending on the height. So that's just one thing I'd suggest we keep in mind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Dan, Jenica, Tom? Okay, I have a few questions and comments. One, I'm wondering if staff can give us some insights. We've often had this discussion about the feasibility of storing materials from buildings that are demolished that, you know, we can't save. So, and it's sort of been the conclusion that it really isn't that practical. So if we could have any comments from Pam or Joanne?
Through the chair, I think that this is one question that I need definitely clarification. I think that if the owner is proposing to store it and to use it, and they have the ability to create a proper environment for those, it would be really the way to go. The city do not have a lot of storage spaces. Mm-hmm. We are struggling to find some storages for some of these pieces that we are storing. And the problem is the extent of time in which it will take for any kind of development to go through. And it's not likely that anyone will have the corporate memory to actually retain those information when a development does occur. I also want to get clarification from Mr. Roberts. My understanding is that this parquet is going to be in this location for a while until such time that you will have redevelopment plan for the property. So does that mean that this particular location will not be changed once the parquet is provided? What happened to it when there's a future development that might involve kind of space? I mean, I think it's important for the city to know a overall plan for the area, even though it might be still a long time away for your client. It would be important for us to know that the effort that is being provided for this parquet now will not be removed in 10 years' time if and when there's a plan for something else to happen. That is something that I think from a planning perspective is something that we do worry about. I think that the removal of the house and then reusing the material is great. But if it is a location that we know is going to be permanent, that is much more reassuring.
Well, with the current retail climate out there, we're having a heck of a job even backfilling the empty spaces we have currently. So, and we don't foresee this turning around for quite some time, I'll be very honest. I think the concept, what I understand from the owners of the property, is that this actual setting that we are developing here is going to be there for some time. I really can't foresee us doing any development at the moment. We have currently over 280,000 square feet that is heated and air conditioned, that we're going to, any materials that we don't use are going to be stored in that facility. I don't believe in that particular space that we're going to backfill that in the very near future as well. So these are all things I as well looked into to ensure that these things are kept for future, whatever they plan to do with this property. I hope that answers your question. But with the retail environment right now, I'm sure everybody's seeing it. There's really no new development that we want to do right this time. We got to backfill what we have.
Okay. Joanne, Pam, do you want to respond to that? The idea that there is storage and that this is not a short-term project?
Well, I think that ultimately, if the owner can take the responsibility and commitment and provide an inventory of the material being stored, and that this information will be available somehow, and to be, committed as part of the planning process in the future, I don't know what the mechanism it is that we can use to ensure that, but I definitely know that it would be very difficult for the city to provide storage spaces for an unknown amount of time and the unknown amount of material.
Okay. Okay. I see Helen and Reka with their hands up again. Though I still have questions, but I'll hear from you and I'll get back to my other 4 comments and questions. Okay.
Thank you,
Helen?
Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I wasn't aware in the beginning that this package was temporary in a sense. Although I understood the retail situation is not as good at this time, but things can change. So are you saying if in the future there's a new development there, the package may be removed?
The parquet, how I look at it, and we're looking, I'm going by what I'm told and informed by the owners, is that the parquet is going to be there for quite some time. They really haven't got any plans put together to do any development in this location at the moment. So I don't have a timeline on this particular thing. I can't answer that question at the moment. I can follow up with the owners just to see. But my last discussion was that they're not looking at this property for quite some time.
So if I could, by extension, expand on that. So the conservation approach is the twofold. So it's the immediate parquet with the reuse of material and the panel right away. And then the second piece is the salvage of material for the potential for a future building that's going to go there, which is also a very strong conservation. The integration of historic materials into a new building is definitely a very strong conservation approach, and something that is encouraged, which is why those materials will be retained for that future for that kind of next phase, I guess, of the commemoration, if you will. So let's just say hypothetically it does, the retail climate changes. The reason that they're going to take on the responsibility of storing these is to integrate it into the new building. And so there's going to be some thought process behind how you integrate those historic materials in, how you're going to want it to look and represent it, and then, you know, how you're going to interpret that to the public as well. So if it happens, we have that kind of future mechanism there that we've discussed, and that's what we've thought out. So
yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the question would be for Joanne. All they are saying, they propose now, all those information, it's going to be written in a proposal that in the future this will not be forgotten.
I don't know. As this is, my understanding is this is a presentation to get your input and response. Certainly, I think that this is a time when we ask the questions, and however it evolves into some kind of agreement is still part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for making that comment, Helen. Al, did you have another comment there? Sorry, okay. Amy, did you want to respond to something?
Yeah, sorry, just for the next steps to maybe make this more clear, and I'm sorry I rushed at the end. I usually end with kind of what the next steps are. We have our kind of draft conservation plan in the works. We're waiting for your feedback, and that will be submitted as its own report after hearing some of this feedback in a more detailed way as part of this process.
Okay, Jenica?
Okay, so through you, Madam Chair, I guess I'm curious, your draft conservation plan, what kind of plans do you guys have for maintaining this parquet? Are you guys doing yearly or regular maintenance? Are we repairing things as they break down? What are our thoughts on that? Is there a plan?
Yes, definitely. We currently have contractors that are on site that do landscaping for the particular property. And in fact, we're improving upon the look of the property as we move forward today. So this would be a part of that particular contract. to ensure that's maintained. We don't see weeds growing up between the bricks, that kind of thing. The bushes are kept trimmed at all times. Things are kept clean. We have a general maintenance contract on this property now, so every day the garbage is picked up, that kind of thing. I come from the world of Cadillac Fairview, just to let you know, the first class shopping centers. So I used to work in before I retired and then came back in the business. But my goal is to turn this into an A property, and that's what we're doing right now with it.
And our conservation plan also will include short, medium, and long-term kind of maintenance that adhere to the standards and guidelines of historic places with the materials specific that are proposed for reuse.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jenica, for that question and the responses. That was good. Rachel, I see you have your hand up again.
Sorry, everyone. I lost internet connection there and I had to log back on. My apologies. And I apologize if you guys already know the answer to this question. I'm new to this. So Amy or Michael, through you, Madam Chair, if you could, either one of you could answer to me. What happens when you're preserving the material? For example, say the owner sells the property to someone else, or if the company or the owner goes bankrupt, or any number of things, what guarantees are there actually in place that the material is going to be preserved for future use? And if not by this owner, by the subsequent owners of the land?
That's a very good question. I would have to say, as part of the package, when we sell a particular property, and this with the Heritage House being a major part of Jefferson Square, there would have to be something written into the sale, condition of sale, that the heritage component is somehow stored within that company, or they may just rent space from the current owner to keep it where it is and incorporate in the future. That's like having a crystal ball. I really don't know what's going to happen with this property. I don't foresee it being sold for many, many years. The owners really are investing a lot of money in this place. So yeah, that could happen. The right owner shows up to pay a big price for it. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I truly believe that they will maintain the materials that are being stored. And they would pass that. And I would make sure that's written in this, even though I'm not going to be around, but I would make sure something's written in there to ensure that this is continued on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Doris, and then Dan. And then I have a list of questions and comments. So
one very short comment, Madam Chair. We've heard about the parquet being established, which I think is a good way to recognize the heritage nature of that property. However, I am concerned about the fact that we don't have a timeline as to how long that parquet is to be maintained. I think we've heard some from Michael and Amy how they intend to build it and how they intend to maintain it. But I think as part of the conservation plan, especially given the question from the councillor that, you know, what happens if the property is sold? I think it's important for us to have it as part of the conservation plan, an understanding of how long that parquet is expected to be there. Thank you.
okay.
So if I could respond to that. So the limitations of the conservation plan is really to talk about the materials that are proposed for removal, and as this and if there was a proposed redevelopment that was even actually a potential, which it's not, that would certainly be part of the process. But without that, the highest outcome that from a heritage consultant's point of view is what's happening here, which is a reuse of the space in a public way that communicates the value to the public, and as well the extra storage of materials to be integrated into the future. So I feel like I might want to just reiterate the commitment to responsibility to store those materials is not, it shouldn't be underestimated in terms, it should reflect, I hope, the commitment of the property owners and their desire to want to reuse that. I've certainly been in positions before where people would stop at just a plaque. And so there's definitely been a lot of dialogue and discussion about how we can reach the highest outcome here and what is the most we can do. So I just feel that it's important that the committee understands that, that we've had a lot of those discussions.
Okay, thank you, Amy. It'll be Dan, and then I'm going to speak, and then I'm going to have Al. So Dan?
Yeah, just a clarification. As I understand it, we're not changing it as a designated property. It's still a designated property if that's correct. We're really taking a building and making it into a parquet with the materials from the building, but it still retains its designated standing. Is that correct?
I'll let Pamela speak to this, but it's my understanding that the designation bylaw would need to be removed.
So under the changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, once a structure is demolished, then council needs to reevaluate the cultural heritage value of the property and then determine whether the designation bylaw stays the same, is amended, or is repealed. Given that the Jefferson Post Office is the only heritage attribute, the only heritage structure on the property, then it'd be assumed that the designation would be removed once the demolition is complete.
Oh, that's interesting because I would say we're taking a built structure that has a heritage history to it and putting it into taking those materials and still having a built structure, whether it's a house or not, that it still would retain its designated status as a cultural site. So, I mean, that would answer the questions about what happens after if ownership changes or any of this other stuff. I mean, that's the whole purpose of this being a designated property. It seems to me a little bit. It seems to me that we're knocking a building down. We're putting something in there that now it's not designated, and then after that, all the bets are off. I mean, anything could happen to it, even though the promises are there to keep it in the long term. We're basically eliminating a designated property from the inventory, which, it seems to me a bit of a problem, even though I do agree with the concept, the conservation concept and all that stuff, but I would, still think of it as still a designated area, but that's just my point. So thank you.
Okay. Can I ask a clarification question for Joanne? And I hope I'm not, Amy, you may want to respond to this, but what is the precedent set, for when buildings are knocked down? Like it sounds, I'm interpreting, Pam, from what you say, that it's not our choice. It is just how the legislation is, that if a building is not there, then the law is that it's no longer a designated property. Is that correct? Like it's not up for interpretation?
So, sorry, go ahead.
My understanding is that council actually make the final decision with the new legislation that came through just earlier this year. Council is not automatically repealed when is removed, but we do have to put in another staff report to council indicating that the attribute is now removed. Council, what do you want to do with the designation? Do you want to repeal it or do you want to keep it? So it's up to council to determine what they want to do.
Okay. And us as Heritage Richmond Hill can make a recommendation to council.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I would like to make a few comments and I'm anxious to do that. Okay. So Amy and Michael, I am a rep of the Historical Society, and every time we have a meeting, what's happening with the Jefferson Post Office? It's very important to them. I am not looking forward to telling them that it's going to be demolished. Okay, so just upfront. So it's a very important place to them. So I'm asking if it's possible if I ask the Historical Society, who has a strong knowledge base, if they can put some input into what is appropriate for that. I don't know if there's any opportunity for that, but I'm asking that. Okay. Second thing is, I would like to know the dimensions of this. The word parquet is almost like it's an afterthought. Like a parquet is, so to me, such an insignificant thing that I'm hoping we could even call a little park, not a parquet. But if you could, I have a sense, but if you could tell me it is X size, I would like to have that to bring it back to Historical Society. Also, I'm going to ask if it's possible, hot, it's going to be hot and sunny when people are out there, and we have climate change, it's going to be even hotter. Is there any way that we could have some shade, if we could have some trellises maybe made out of that, something? And I also think something unique should be there, not just a plaque that represents that this was a post office. This was an important part of the community, that it was, the concept of a post office. Rick is probably waiting for me to say this because I've talked to her enough about benches. Benches are sort of my in thing for promoting. So yeah, let's have some benches. I am involved through Reka to have a happy to chat bench. So, and my goal is to have lots of happy to chat benches so we can incorporate benches and more, particularly the concept of a post office. So those are a couple of ideas. And yeah, so actually that is all I have to say. So I don't know if anyone can respond to my comments and questions about allowing the Historical Society to have some input into this and having it more. They're just, I like that circular reuse of the stones. But
I'm happy to answer that. Yes, I would be absolutely happy to work with the Historical Society on the plaque and what they would like communicated in the plaque, and work with them in some of their archives or hear their ideas about how we could maybe bring that into a more creative kind of visual aesthetic or something along those lines. Absolutely, that would be fantastic. As for the dimensions and where things go at this early stage, we just wanted to get some feedback on if the idea of the parquet was something that the committee responded to. And so part of the conservation strategy that we're going to kind of expand on and develop is how many bricks are we going to need? How is it going to be laid out? How is that going to look? So that's something that is kind of the next steps at this part. So we just wanted to present you with kind of a general concept of where it's going to go and what it's going to look like. See if there was feedback on that, and then the conservation plan is going to actually come up with the site plan or the design to show you.
Okay. Is it possible that I be sent a few of the images so I could send them on to those people in the Historical Society?
For comment or just to present to them?
Yeah, just to present to them, and just so I can. It's easier to have pictures. So yeah.
Well, if it's part of the pros, like, we submit our draft to the city for comment. Okay. So I think if the city wanted to integrate that as part of their process, that would be a conversation you can have outside of this space. Maybe.
Thank you. Okay. And comments about shade. It's just, we need it.
Yeah. And these are the comments we were hoping to hear. So thank you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, Al, I was anxious to ask those questions. So Al, you have some more question, comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And of course, you're part of the discussion, so you're welcome to your turn and certainly well deserved. My question is, I guess, would be for staff to understand the context of our discussion, because we seem to be having this an amorphous discussion about this property, and we're seeking assurances. And I'm concerned that we're not in a place to seek those assurances. So what I want to ask staff is there a demolition application before staff right now? Because I don't see one on our agenda regarding this property.
No, there isn't one right now. The owner and with Amy and ARA, they've provided this prior to submitting a demolition application, a formal one, because they want to finalize a commemoration plan before bringing it forward. And the plan is to have the recommendations of the commemoration plan brought forward in the staff report as recommendations as a condition of the demolition approval by council.
Okay.
I can add that this is a rather an unusual practice. Usually we actually receive the whole package and the committee will discuss whether the plan is acceptable or not. This is not a very typical process by any means, and certainly not in my experience. So I would say that this probably is an act of courtesy from the applicant to get your idea, but by no means it's a definite thing. I mean, tomorrow the owner may change their mind and not demolish the house, or it might change their mind about. I mean, this is actually just a precursor to any active application. We should have provided this as actually the upfront apology.
Thank you. That does help quite a bit, and I think it helps the entire committee to understand the context of our discussion. So just a comment to the entire committee, now is our chance to have this input for the commemoration, and knowing that we may see a demolition application in the future. So I would say thank you to the landowner and their representatives for bringing this to the committee ahead of time. I would encourage all applicants to do this sort of thing, because it certainly does help the committee have time to have discussion and connect anybody that may be interested. As the chair has pointed out, the Historical Society, it does give us a lot of time to have those discussions and have an input in the and have a more constructive and productive discussion and an end goal. Thank you.
I have a couple of other questions sort of following up from that. What is the timeline? Like if I go to the Historical Society, do we need something in 3 weeks, 3 months? And also, the question is, there's no way of saving the building? Like it's just, that's, you know, I've heard about the neglect, the decaying nature, but it's like, so I have to ask this question.
Yeah, fair question. So after this meeting, based on your comments, I mean, Michael and I will need to regroup and talk about kind of what this looks like. And as soon as we have some type of timelines for input, we'll definitely communicate that to you. But we're all very mindful that we don't expect you to give us something the next day kind of thing. So we're very mindful of people's time and how long it takes to provide that input. I did go in the building, and I probably went in the building about 5 feet only. So I will say that there is the stairs are gone. It's been repeatedly broken into. A whole section of the wall and the brick is coming down. Our conservation specialist witnessed kind of bowing of walls. The chimneys have already been reinforced. And they're kind of being held in there. The windows are no longer, you know, there's kind of glass and vandalism. The floor is all bowed. And so, you know, from a conservation point of view and my observation, I'm not an engineer. That's why the structural engineering report is part of that, to support that. There was a discussion about what this looks like in terms of sometimes there's little pieces that can be saved. There are issues on every elevation, foundation and roof. So I don't know if you have been, but you certainly will be, I think, provided the structural engineering report, which obviously could speak to those deficiencies. Okay. And the overall condition warranted demolition. And there is genuine safety concerns as well from it being consistently broken into. So.
Okay. It's almost 8 o'clock. We've had a long discussion on this. Any other last comments, questions for anyone else? And
I'm really sorry to do this, but if I hadn't say one last question, because you asked so many questions in a row and I tried to remember them all. You had talked about wanting some kind of interesting artifact. By extension of what I just said inside, there's what we recommended for salvage was really all there was in terms of recommendations for salvage. So if the Historical Society has some type of letter from that post office or something really tangible, physical, that they want to integrate into the plaque or in something like that, I think that's kind of as good as it gets as far as interesting artifacts as well to go on that space.
I was thinking of building an interesting mailbox. Sorry.
Okay, well.
Okay, sorry. I did not mean to derail you there. Okay. So anyways, okay. Dan, I think you have a little comment there.
Yeah, just a comment. It's really more to the staff. If we are talking about this conservation plan and we are talking about the demolition of the building and you are talking about redesignation, I would really like to understand the approach that the city is going to take with regards to removing the designation here, because to me, a parkette or a park or whatever you take with the buildings, that's almost like a monument in a sense, and that is a cultural heritage, so it shouldn't lose designation. So if that topic comes up in the future, I would like to really understand the direction that you're going to go if you decide not to designate that property. So that's my feedback.
Okay. Okay. I have actually, I see one more question for my, that I forgot to ask. Would this be part of the city's inventory for parks, or is it separate from that?
It's a private park. It's not a public park. It's private.
Private park that's open to the public.
Yes, but it's not in the inventory of.
It's not in the inventory. Okay, just curious about that whole aspect of it.
We will not be responsible for the maintenance of it.
Yeah. Okay. 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 I believe we had a good discussion, some good points, and again, Amy, Michael, thank you for our answering all our questions, our interrogations, our yeah. So again, thank you, and I hope we will hear from you in the near future.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need to move that we accept their delegations? Ryan, I think I've lost track of what we're doing here.
To the chair. So Mr. Roberts, certainly while he was asking questions, I don't know if he had anything additional because he is a delegate. So we sort of exhausted, I'm going to say, Ms. Barnes's delegation, but that's up to you. It seems like perhaps everything was answered, but I leave it to you, Madam Chair, to decide whether or not, or to pose a question to Mr. Roberts, if you wanted to add anything more.
You unmute, Michael.
I love this computer. I have nothing further to add at the moment. I do need to add just a little more research on behalf of the committee, because I want to work very closely with you in regards to this project. So right now I don't have anything more, like I say, to add. I just want to take this and digest it and work with Amy on the next steps and what you have to come back to us. I just really want to thank you for allowing us to come in and present, because that's fun. At the end of the day, I'm like you. I like heritage buildings, and if I could have saved this building, I really would have. But again, because of the engineer's report, it's beyond say salvageable. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Again, thank you.
Thank you, and I will leave.
Okay.
Take care. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks. Okay. Ryan, the question I had for you was, do we have to accept the delegations now? We voted on that? No, we don't need to accept the delegations. Got it. Okay. Okay. I believe next is the staff is going to report on them, correct? I've lost my.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I'm too many pieces of paper here. Okay. Yes. So we moved to scheduled business 6.1. And there's going to be a verbal update by Pam.
Yes, it's been pretty much covered already through the delegation and the questions, but that the owners of 11666 Yonge Street, the Jefferson Post Office, are proposing to request the building to be demolished. We haven't received a formal demolition application, but we expect one in the near future. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that may be coming up on a future Heritage Richmond Hill agenda for your review.
Okay, thank you. So okay. Okay, so do we need to schedule? Okay. Do we have to move to hear Pam's report? Yes, okay. Anyone mover for Pam's report? Okay, I see Jenica. Okay, any discussion with that? Nope. All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, carried. Okay, let's move to 6.2. SRPI 22.048, request to amend heritage designating bylaw 29098, 1000 Elgin Mills Road East, City File D12-07173. The Heritage Richmond Hill recommends to council that the proposed amendments to designate this bylaw be approved. Okay. Okay. Can we move to accept this? Okay, Doris. Okay. Discussion. I'm hoping you had a chance to read it. It was fairly fair amount to read there. Any more inputs from the staff? No. Okay. Okay, clerk, Ryan, do I need to read all of this?
To the chair, I believe member Dumas has moved the motion as it is, so
Okay.
it's really not required.
Okay. Okay, so any questions, any discussions? Okay, so all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. Item 6.3, heritage permit application for 37 Chaw Crescent, file D12-07233, that the heritage permit application to install eaves, Chaw, and downspouts on the building at 37 Chaw Crescent, as described in the staff report SRP 122052, be approved. Okay, anyone move this? Can I have a mover? Thank you, Helen. Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that one's carried. Okay. Moving on to 6.4, SRP 122056, 22 Heritage Grant applications. There were 6 properties. Okay. Is there someone to move this? Reka, Councilor Shepherd. Okay, thank you. Any discussions? We've got the 6 applications. So we're giving away some money, which always feels good. We're helping promote and ensure heritage happens. So any discussion with this? Reka.
Sorry, just briefly, I wanted to say how great it is that we have these grant programs to support, the lovely owners of these heritage homes. It takes a lot of effort to maintain these homes, as we all know. So I'm just very excited that we're able to give a little bit back to, cover some of the costs. That's all. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Okay. Discussion. All in favor?
Madam Chair, I had a question.
Sorry, I didn't see that. Thank you. Sorry, Al.
No worries. Just a question for staff. Reading the report, I kept seeing the term sympathetic and unsympathetic. Perhaps that's a term of art, but could they just explain that?
Yes, sympathetic would be something that doesn't take away from the property's heritage attributes. Is something that would complement it, would be making the building better or neutral, so that if there are any impacts to the heritage attributes of the property, it would be either neutral or positive. Unsympathetic would be something that would detract from the heritage attributes. So it's something like if you use like neon pink to paint the exterior of our house, it wouldn't be a traditional color. So that would be unsympathetic, because that would be something that would not have been a color that would have been traditionally used. So it's it's not an official, like there's no heritage specific definition of sympathetic versus unsympathetic. It's just, just a descriptor, if that
Okay.
helps.
Is that fine now?
It does, thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's not my use of synonyms for sympathetic in it there. So thank you for that clarification. Expand our vocabulary. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, okay, all in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, that is carried. Very good. Okay. Moving on to 6.5, opportunities for promotion and marketing heritage through the City of Richmond Hill's website. Discussion item by Dan Kelly. Okay, Dan.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to introduce this as a talk point because it's been brought up a number of times in past meetings that we've had where we need to do something more to promote to the public. So in the last couple meetings that we've had, we've talked a number of times about utilizing the website, the city website for other elements. And I thought this might be a good segue into a discussion on this. But I think it's important that we look at three key things when we talk about this and get input from everyone. One, I guess, is the need. Is this something that's needed? The second is, what is the Heritage Richmond Hill role in all this? And then third is, what is the effort that would be required? So for example, in the need, I believe it's in our mandate that we, liaise or communicate with the public. And this is one way of doing it. I mean, certainly there are other ways like using Facebook, or other websites that are not the city. In this particular context, I thought I'd specifically say the website, the city website, because it is convenient for us and we do have a good relationship with staff and the city on how this could be used. So I would argue it's part of our mandate to do it. As I mentioned before, it's come up a number of times where we say to in our discussions that we've had that we really should do more FaceTime with the public to reinforce the need for heritage, that sort of thing. And I believe there is a lack of transparency in the sense we talked about this before with I don't think it's very easy to see where the bylaw is for maintaining heritage properties. I know staff have said that they're working on this and this will be improved, but there are other things like you could have a support element where you point people to the various websites or other information that they can get on heritage, specifically within Richmond Hill or even outside. So it's more of a link in that particular sense. So that's just to give you an idea of the need part. The role, again, is, are we going to be reactive or proactive in actually the approach that we take with heritage? So this is more of a pushing out to the public and allowing the public to sort of come back in. So I think it's an option that we should look at. It also is something that we can coordinate with staff, which leads me into the next key area, which is effort. So this in no way should be a staff project. This is something that Heritage Richmond Hill has to develop the content. We're simply looking to staff to be the link, I guess, to the technical people who would allow us to have that linkage in the website. If we choose to go another direction, then that's another question. But I'm just curious. I don't want to limit it just simply to the website. It's really, how do we sort of promote the heritage out to the public? So if, for example, we're talking about the website, the content would have to be generated from the Heritage Richmond Hill. So that's our volunteer group to do that, and then provide that to the city. So the city wouldn't be doing a lot of work on this, more as a liaison. So that's all. I just wanted to give you an idea of 3 areas to look at and what the context of all this was. So I'll just sit back, and I'm curious to hear what others have to say about it.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for that and for asking us really like, how do we want to promote heritage to the public? And I guess part of that question is to do that as part of the HRH committee. And, how much work should we do? And, what's really appropriate to have on the town's website? I would just like to start this conversation. Dan and I have had a conversation that I am in the very fortunate position that I'm on Historical Society. I know I had been with the Heritage Richmond Hill Place. I work with Peter Wilson, who is at the library, the historian library. Jenica, I think you were at his rep. So we have various avenues already available out there. Really, the Heritage Center, the Historical Society, and the library's historical archives. I think there's a more proper term. I am actually suggesting that us as a committee, going forward, like, we need to make sure we know what's out there before we start promoting things. It's sort of unfortunate this is happening at the end of our term, like we've got summer coming up, and then we have a little bit of time, and then I'm gone. I've done my 2 terms. But I certainly would propose that as part of this committee's training, or sort of orientation, maybe a better word, that we actually all committee members have understand what is happening and knows what's out there is happening in the community. So that's my 2 cents. That's how I'm kicking this off. The rest of you, I'd love to hear. I'm hoping all of you will give some input into this. So sorry to put you on the spot, but I am. Okay, who'd like to go first? Yes, Doris, thank you.
So, Madam Chair and Dan, I agree with both of your comments. I think it's something that I've raised on a number of occasions. And yes, I think there's a role for the committee to play, and I think we need to define that role. But there's also a role for the staff to play, not in terms of our designing something and having them implement it, but for us to get from them insights and advice on what we can and cannot do within the City of Richmond Hill's requirements, to make sure that in fact what we are proposing can be, whether it's being put on a website or social media site, whatever the case may be. I think it's very critical that we have the staff involved, so that we're not developing a whole proposal that city that is not within the City of Richmond Hill's requirements. But I think this is a very important area. And yes, we are at nearing the end of the mandate, but I think if we can put together a plan or a strategy on how we can do the marketing, there's nothing that prevents us from ensuring that is transitioned to the new committee, quite frankly.
Very good. Thank you, Doris. Okay. Who would like to go next? Reka.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, what has the committee done so far in terms of promotion? What was the course of action? How was heritage promoted historically? I just want to get a little bit of background. So, thank you.
Dan, do you want to answer that?
Sure. My experience has been pretty much 2 terms. It doesn't seem to be foremost in our mind to do it. I think we rely a lot on the city and staff to promote this. Most of our promotion has basically been when the public comes and presents to us. We ask questions, we talk about things, and in a sense, we promote heritage by saying, you know, we really like this or we don't like this and that sort of thing. But I don't think, in my experience, there hasn't been a concerted effort by this committee itself to develop content, to organize ourselves, to push that information out. And I agree with Marge in terms of, you know, there are other groups, but each has a different perspective on how they look at things. And I think we all have a role to play. And I think, you know, Heritage Richmond Hill comes from the perspective of the legislation, that sort of thing, and making sure that things are transparent to people because of these grants, because of the bylaws that we have. They should be easily accessible for people to see, which they really aren't. I mean, I've had a tough time, and I would say that I've got some experience on how to research some of this stuff. So to answer your question, I think there's a lot more that can be done. I think very little has been organized. It's been sort of individuals or other things that we've talked to other people. Marge, you probably have a little bit more experience than I have in that area too. So,
Reka, did you want to respond to that?
Yes, so thank you for the explanation, Dan. Just in terms of what I would like to see in terms of promotion, just my feedback, I think that we have a lot of important things. One of the crazy ideas that I've always had, and maybe it's not so crazy, is to organize a walking tour, or even go as far as saying a horse and carriage tour of our historical sites here, because there is so much value to that. It'll, you know, highlight these great places to our residents. It'll attract tourists and tourism to our area, which in turn could contribute to the promotion of our businesses, especially in the village core. So I think there's a lot of benefit to, if we're looking at ways to promote our heritage, to perhaps look at a concerted effort to try to organize some kind of heritage tours so that people really see what we have out there. And also, I'm trying to work on a heritage map. I've been in touch with Pamela. We're going to promote that on my website, and I'd like to promote that more so people really see that map and sort of get an idea of what we have right here as a fun sort of activity. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Pam or Joanne, do you want to respond? Because I think we do have some of those things. We have walking tours, and Maggie McKenzie is a great resource. So you know, we do a little bit of that, and so yeah, I'm going to send some information to you after Reka.
Sorry, Marge. So I have talked to Pam about it, but I'd like to see it more and on a grander scale. So if we can promote that and do something maybe even more, you know, that would be really great. Definitely. But Pam's been kind enough to send me information about all of it.
Good. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad. Yeah, very good. Because okay, Al, comment. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may disappoint you. I was not going to comment on this specific matter. It's more of a procedural matter, or procedural issue, I should say. So I was just thinking ahead for when we finish this item 6.5. Perhaps the chair or the originator of this item could think about rewording the motion, just because I've never seen a motion where the body is being asked to vote to receive its own comments. And so it's a very strange motion. It'll have no force of an effect, really. So perhaps we could word it in a way that's more suited.
If I could just comment on that, like it isn't a motion. It's really just a topic for discussion. And after the discussion, I was intending to make a particular motion that we can put the words, whatever is best for the committee.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, Ryan, can you guide us on that if we need to, what we need to do in terms of motions?
To the chair. So I would perhaps ask Member Kelly. He was stating that he was going to move, I guess, something that's different than what is on the agenda right now. I do understand the sort of irony in that, but you know, I think in this particular case, you know, is the intention to have, again, more promotions and marketing? I mean, in that sense, you know, anything to direct staff has to go to council for approval. So, you know, if the intention is to, you know, as an example, Councillor Shepherd brought up like a walking tour or things like that, you know, if it's to have, you know, direct staff to investigate, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, that's possibly how it'd be worded, but
Okay, I mean,
I don't know what.
Yeah, I understand. To me, when I initially set up this for a discussion point, I thought of two motions. One is internal to the HRH that wouldn't have to go to council, and the second one would be if we needed some work or help or advice from staff, then yeah, we would go to council. So the first part of the motion, based on the limited comments so far, it's obvious that we need to do more ourselves on this to get a little bit better appreciation of what can be done, what can't be done, that sort of stuff. And like you say, it is at the end of the term. So my motion might be as simple as we should set up a subcommittee to discuss this further and make recommendations to HRH for us to go any further with it, if that makes sense. And I know, again, I know it's late in the term, but it's useful to have a subcommittee to look at it for a short period of time. And then if the new committee wants to carry that on, they can. Anyhow, so my motion would be a recommendation that we should set up a subcommittee for this and then staff it or get volunteers or whatever. However, I don't know how the wording of that it would be, but anyhow.
Okay. Could I include on this the motion, a motion or whatever, that moving forward, the HRH has an orientation with that includes presentations by the Heritage Center, by the historical librarian who's in charge of history, and by the Historical Society. Is that feasible? And I'm not, Joanne, Pamela, Ryan.
Madam Chair, if I could comment on that, those are two entirely separate ideas that would have to be properly two separate motions.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. I agree. Same idea of where we're going, but where I'd like to see us go. Like, I just feel like before we need to know what's out there before we say we need to promote more heritage. So that's just where I'm coming from. Okay. I've been monopolizing.
So, sorry, Madam Chair, I think in the context of what I said was setting up a subcommittee, it could be part of the mandate, or within that subcommittee, they could come up with the points that you just made as well. So I think that's all encompassing. So I think the simple thing is to have maybe a subcommittee with some staffing to sort of brainstorm this and come up with some, I mean, listen to everybody's comments on this. Yeah. That was the whole point of having it as a discussion point. And then take it from there. The motion coming out of it would be maybe to set up a subcommittee to take into account the comments that we make. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, okay.
Madam Chair, from a procedural point of view, if I could suggest that we defer this item, just so that there should be some discussion offline to clarify and solidify what we intend to do. And we could certainly put that in a motion at the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But at this time, it sounds like there's a lot of discussion and there isn't really a motion ready to table.
Okay. I'm wondering if we should take this opportunity of hearing from other committee members who would like to have some input into this concepts before we defer it. So Helen, I don't think I've heard from you, and Tom and Kidambi. Yeah, Kidambi?
Yep. Okay, I tend to agree with what the councillor said about making it a little bit elaborate, not just leaving alone with the web. So as you all know that we had this doors open going on every year, something independent of the doors open, not include part of it, especially for the heritage, we should do something similar to the doors open. I think that'll be a little bit grandiose gesture than just going through that. That's my personal opinion, but it's my 2 cents worth rather.
Yes, thank you. But doors open, we were thinking about doors open because that was a good model.
It was a
And
good model.
your temple was the best location. So yeah, we'll model it after yours. So
No,
good
just
food.
the idea of that, like the doors open, make all the heritage alone rather than combining with the doors open. I think it'll be a good idea.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. Tom, any comments from you?
No, just in general supportive of the nature. I think the idea of getting a subcommittee to kind of look at some actual details around it would be a good idea, but generally agree with the concept of trying to promote it some more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Helen, I don't have you down here in the list for making comments on this point. No comments? Okay. Okay, Jenica? Oh, you're good. Yep.
Sorry, my mouse is being sticky. No, I think I generally agree that this would be a fun thing to explore. I guess I'm very interested in terms of like, what is our jurisdiction? What is our role, and what is the role of like city staff, and where is that line? I think that would be an interesting thing to sort of get clarified or to kind of understand before addressing this question further. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Jenica. Okay, I think we've gone around the screen. Oh, Al, you have your hand up again?
Sorry, Madam Chair. I don't mean to be the one to always
Nope.
criticize ideas. I
No.
firmly believe in procedure and that it's there for a
Yes.
reason. So my question is to the clerk, does this committee have the authority under their terms of reference to create a new subcommittee? Because I'm not sure we're allowed to do that.
Through the chair, I'm actually in the midst of trying to find the terms of reference. I can make a few perhaps suggestions in terms of how to move forward. So at this point in time, I would sort of suggest that the member motion was really to start the discussion to get something going forward in order to make that discussion. That being said, I do have terms of reference, and Heritage Richmond Hill is able to establish a subcommittee as needed to consider specific issues. So it's not out of order to make a motion that a subcommittee be formed. I do have some text for that. I will also like to point out that in terms of the remaining meetings for Heritage, so there is one in June 14, after which there is not another meeting until September 6th, which would be the last Heritage Richmond Hill meeting. So again, I know there's been some discussion about, it's coming near the end of the term and things of that nature. But, at the same time, perhaps it's a way to, maybe kickstart for the next term of council and the next, Heritage Richmond Hill committee. But to answer, remember, where it is in order. Certainly, Heritage can establish a subcommittee, and yes. So.
Okay, Al, you fine there?
Yes, Madam Chair, that does help. So would the committee consider some sort of motion, some wording for item 6.5, whereby we propose that we establish a subcommittee for the purposes of discussion, of promotion, and orientation for new members of the committee for the next term. And I'm sorry, I can't remember everything that was mentioned. There were a lot of great ideas that people mentioned.
To the chair, let me just I will put something together very quickly, and then perhaps we can edit it on the screen if that works in order to craft a motion.
Okay, I believe, can you work on that? And I see Dan's got his hand up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Yeah, so, I mean, Ryan answered most of what I was going to say. I mean, we have a designation subcommittee that was created in exactly this sort of manner where we just set it up and set a motion and people volunteered and joined it. So I don't see any reason why we couldn't do the same thing. And I wouldn't go into too much detail on it. I mean, the subcommittee members can decide themselves. I mean, they got the general context of what we're trying to do and they know the mandate. There is a line in our mandate as to what it is, and that's really what it should be referred to. So I'm not thinking of complex wording for this, just something simple, and we vote on it. And if it's accepted, then, you know, people can volunteer here or behind the scenes to the chair. I don't know exactly how that would work.
Yeah, that was my next question. How do we decide, you know, who's on this committee? Is there a procedure for that? Ryan? Sorry.
I apologize, trying to do two things at once.
Yeah, I know, sorry.
So
You have had to work tonight. Okay.
Under the terms of reference, and perhaps let me bring this up for everybody to view. So this is the wording, so I will certainly read it. So Heritage Richmond Hill may establish subcommittees as needed to consider specific issues. Subcommittees are not required to be approved through committee of the whole and council. Subcommittees are responsible for the preparation of their own agendas and minutes as required and making their own arrangements for meeting locations. In this last part, only members of Heritage Richmond Hill may be members of any subcommittee. I would suggest if, again, as I create the motion, if there are any members who want to perhaps be on the subcommittee or perhaps lead, you know, the sort of preparation and just to get the members together, I would certainly have that in the motion. Otherwise, you know, you sort of have a committee with no members, which perhaps doesn't work as well. You know, now that being said, I have started sort of crafting something. So perhaps, and I'll read this, you know, that a subcommittee be formed for the purpose of investigating opportunities for the promotion of heritage in Richmond Hill, which I think covers that first part, as well as an orientation program for new members of Heritage Richmond Hill for the next term. I know there was some discussion about this, you know, the Historical Society, but I think perhaps the subcommittee could start looking at that. That would be part of their sort of mandate, you know, and so I would sort of remove that, but, you know, I would have an option B to sort of say, you know, and the subcommittee, you know, members be, you know, and then perhaps list members there. So.
Okay. Okay, should we decide on members of this committee first, or should we vote on the motion first?
To the chair, I would let me just add that second part, and then I will bring that back up. But I would have them all together.
Okay. Okay, Tom, you had a question, and then Dan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, just listening to kind of Ryan outline the proposed motion, I'm wondering if they should be separated in some way, because I think the orientation might be more relevant. Well, they're both relevant, but you may want to kind of develop the orientation first, which might help inform kind of what are the critical factors in determining the marketing.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay.
Sorry. So I'm trying to think how we would make that adjustment. So I understand what you're saying, to have that as a separate, perhaps a B, but do you want that sort of removed per se, or since they're probably?
I think it should be an A. It should be A and then to B, I think is what Tom is saying. Correct, Tom?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm just suggesting that, I don't know if it's two different subcommittees. But
I understand. Yeah.
But certainly a subcommittee to look at A, you know, the orientation, and then B, the other piece, in that, you know, maybe based on that initial meeting with the subcommittee, or maybe from the members that speak here, you might get a sense of whether those are the same people, or or if you do want to break it up. But I just think that the two items should be separated, so you're not trying to do it all at once.
Madam Chair, if I can just, there is already an orientation program. I believe the clerk has it. I got it a long time ago. So to simplify it, I think you don't need to put that orientation part in there. It can be part of the subcommittee, or it could be a separate item altogether to review the orientation that exists and maybe be improved. That's the way I would look at it. But it is my motion, and really I'm more interested in just the marketing part and setting up a subcommittee for that. And to get that started, I would be happy to remove myself from the designated subcommittee and join as a member of the new subcommittee on marketing if anybody else would want to join with me.
Okay. Jenica has a comment and Al has a comment, and then I'll make a comment. Okay, Jenica?
Yeah, so I was just gonna go off of what Tom said. I can see, forgive me, Dan, but I can see how timing wise it would make sense to maybe review the orientation and sort of make sure that that is ready to go for the new team that's coming in September with only 2 meetings left. I can see how there's like a very good logical argument to make sure those knots are tied and that's ready to go. I can also see how with the changing of the guard so soon to come, it might not make sense to start a new big project, right? This marketing thing, maybe we can generate some ideas and then pass them on, but maybe it would make sense to leave that for the next team to take over and just make sure that they're orientated in the best way possible. So forgive me, Dan, I see your excitement and I don't mean to rain on your parade, but I do see that argument for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenica. Al?
Madam Chair, just trying to assist the clerk, if you could bring up the motion. And what I was going to suggest is that we just have that a subcommittee be formed, and then perhaps a colon, and then a number of sub items. So one for marketing, one for orientation, and then we could do a catch-all so as to not limit the subcommittee, to say, and any other matter that the subcommittee deems appropriate, and leave it at that. And that way we have the identified items that the subcommittee, can discuss. And it's also not limited to just those items should the discussion lead to something else. And the last thing is, I do not see any reason why Dan would have to remove himself from the designation subcommittee to be on this subcommittee. So I certainly would be fine with Dan being on both.
Thanks, Al. I
Dan may
appreciate
not
that.
Be.
I fully agree with what Al's saying. I think he's saved everybody here. But I do want to remove myself from the subcommittee because I only really want to be on one that's going to do some work.
Okay. Can I just say that I strongly believe that we're calling it an orientation committee, but and the staff does do an orientation. There's a big binder. We all go through that. But what I'd like to differentiate that is the concept of understanding what already exists in our community for the promotion of heritage. I think that needs to happen before we start trying to, as a committee, promote heritage. We need to know what's out there. And I think we also need to know who who should we be talking to. So I think we need is this augmented orientation, which really is before we have move into a marketing plan.
To the chair. So certainly there's a lot of discussion, and I'm going to say that in terms of we don't have a mover. So I mean, and I think obviously we're trying to put something together here, but is it a matter of moving sort of this sub item C up to A? Because what I'm hearing, and again I'm certainly trying to craft the motion, but I'm hearing there needs to be a subcommittee. from what Member Itwar said, which I certainly absolutely appreciate, and I think it's a great idea that, that any other matter that the subcommittee deems appropriate. I mean, it doesn't have to be limited to this. But I believe, the specific issues from the beginning were promotion and marketing. Of course, then now it's the orientation program. So I'm not sure where to move what. I mean, I think it's only one subcommittee, although Tom, Member Pichkovsky was saying, maybe there needs to be two subcommittees. So I don't really sort of know where to trying to think.
Well, Ryan, I guess I can take ownership to the motion. And I would move the orientation up to A. I'd remove the marketing part because for promotion implies a marketing as well. Like if you're going to promote something, you have to have a plan or strategy on what you're going to do, and then a marketing element of that. So I think that would simplify it. I do agree with what everybody's saying is orientation is probably a higher priority for simply since the new committee's coming in. But I think the next thing then is to understand, and in the orientation, you would understand what the mandate is. The mandate then would lead you into the promotional part, and then they can go from there. So anyhow, if that helps.
I see Tom and then Helen. Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if we should just maybe back up a little bit, leave the subcommittee to deal with the promotion, and can we just add a review of, if there's already, I wasn't aware that it was an orientation program. So if there's already something in place, can we have that shared with the committee members and have it as a short discussion item at next meeting?
Through the chair, absolutely. We can absolutely resend everything and then bring this up as an item on the next agenda. Yeah.
I just wondered if, if there's something already kind of developed, then we may be, creating a mountain out of a mole, creating more than we need to do. And maybe it does kind of cloud the promotional part.
Okay. Yeah, Tom, I think that's a great point. Like it's been a long time that I had the orientation and the binder. I'm looking up the top shelf. I see the binder. It's been a while since I've taken it down. And I think the number of you have come in partway through. So I think knowing what we want, we should know what we want to augment before we start talking about augmenting it. So that's an excellent point, Tom. So thank you for that. Helen, you had something to say there?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a comment. I mean, all these are great ideas. However, shouldn't we be mindful of we are going to have a new committee coming soon, and I believe we take I can't remember 1 month or 2 months in the summer break, so we don't have many meetings left, and at this time. Is it worth to form new subcommittee at this time, or should we just pass on the ideas for the next committee?
I would like to respond to that. I would feel good if we left the next committee that with this new orientation, this marketing idea, So I support the idea of presenting something. So
sure.
Okay. I see Doris just put up her hand, and Al and Tom. Doris?
Very briefly, I fully support your position, Madam Chair. I think it's critical for us to do this work. It's not about developing all the plan in terms of setting up all the activities and getting them implemented. It's about putting together a high-level strategy or a high-level plan that can be used as a roadmap by the next committee to be able to move forward around how to promote heritage. And I agree with you that we need to continue building the orientation program. I think when we started 4 years ago, we had a great orientation, but I think a lot has changed since then. And I think it's important that the new committee be well informed as they start and take on their new responsibility.
Thank you for saying that. Well, Doris, I'd like to respond that it's not, new things haven't happened. Like we just, what's the library's historical thing, the Heritage Center, like we should actually have a tour of it. We should have, and some sort of stronger liaison with the Historical Society so that you guys all know about the Historical Society, I think needs to happen. Like we had Pam come to the Historical Society, and I think that was great. But I think we need to go to the Historical Society too. So anyways, that's what I'm saying. It's like that. I see that as an augmentation of our orientation in that way. So thank you for that. Al, I believe your hand's up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could just ask the clerk to just put the motion that's currently being discussed on the screen and just clean it up a little bit so that I can see exactly what we're considering, because I don't believe B is.
Sorry, so through the chair. So here's how I understand currently. So Member Kelly, you have brought forward this, so you said you want to move a motion. I understand that B is not part of it at this point in time, although that was something that was discussed. So while there's perhaps not, I'm going to sort of use the term friendly amendment. I know our procedure bylaw doesn't really have that, but I think if we can get A together, we can certainly then amend the motion to start adding in members for the subcommittee. However, I think at this point in time, from what I'm hearing, certainly, like I said, I can remove that. But at the end of the day, it's sort of, we have a subcommittee with nobody at this point in time. So, Member Kelly, is this correct in terms of what you want to see on your motion? I think let's start there, and then we can perhaps start making amendments.
Yeah, that's fine. I think short and simple is good.
So, Madam Chair, just to help move things along and assist the clerk, perhaps, if Dan is happy with this, I would like to second it and then call for the vote on this particular motion, with the idea being that we would now then have a second motion to populate the subcommittee.
Right. That makes sense.
So Ryan, is that what we do, is to have a second motion to decide who is on the committee?
So I will say that if everyone is in agreement with A, ultimately, I would say that if the committee has a discussion in terms of who would like to be a member on the subcommittee, Member Kelly can just sort of move that motion. There's no seconder in the committee, so it would sort of be, perhaps Dan withdraws the original motion, which A, and then puts it forward with B. So I think provided that Member Kelly's happy with the names that go on there and is willing to move that motion, I think we are okay to go down and have that discussion. I do understand where Member Edwards is going with this. We can do it all in one shot, ultimately, is I guess what I'm saying.
Okay. Is it possible, can you take this down so we can see each other and have a discussion of who's on the committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, but I'm like, okay, I wanted to see people's reaction before I said, okay, Reka, I think you should be on this committee.
Well, Marge, thank you. I would love to be on this committee.
Okay. Dan, I hope you're okay with that.
I'm fine. The more the merrier. And first of all, I apologize to everybody about making this thing so general, because I wanted to get their input first before we came up with something specific.
Okay. Sorry, Dan, you're on the committee. Who else would like to be on this committee? Tom, Doris would, Tom doesn't. Okay. Kandambi, you have some great ideas about doors open. So I think you should be on this committee. Okay. And Doris wants to be on. Do we need library input? Because I think we need the library to be doing some of this stuff. Okay. And Helen, did you haven't taken yourself off screen like Tom. So do you want to be on the committee? No, sorry, Tom. Okay, so Helen's on the committee. Okay,
Sure, yeah.
very good. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I should be on the committee only because I know all these groups or not, but I don't feel like I need to do that. Al, did you want to be on this committee?
Madam Chair, I would be worried that I might bog you down in procedural matters. And the other thing to consider is that if we're all on the committee, it's no longer a subcommittee, it's just a committee. So I'm going to abstain from being on the committee and stick with the designation subcommittee.
Well, I could change it to not be a subcommittee, just make it a committee.
Okay. I wish I could see Ryan's face. He's like, oh no, what a committee. Okay. Okay. Any other inputs into this? Okay. Okay, Ryan, we have it back on the screen. Okay.
So
Okay.
to the chair, first of all, Member Kelly, you're happy with this motion, to move this motion as it stands?
I am. Ryan, I just have a quick question though. I think in the mandate you showed us, it said members, subcommittee can be populated by members of the HRH committee. Isn't there a distinction between various groups and who is a member, who isn't a member? I just remember reading something about that.
Everybody, it's to some degree how they are, I'm going to say the qualifications of them, but everybody who is here, except for staff, are members of Heritage Richmond Hill.
Okay. Yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, that's fine. I didn't expect so many people to be on the subcommittee, but that's good.
Okay. We don't have Jenica.
Oh, was Jenica? I didn't. Okay.
If I may, I think I would need to do a little bit of research, maybe have a couple conversations before committing to that commitment. So I'm definitely willing to work as a library representative, definitely willing to work with the subcommittee. I'm not sure that I'm in a position to commit to being on it at this point. So can I maybe report back? Can I opt in later? Is there a way to sort of talk to my superiors and then kind of get back to you guys? Is there a way to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we
And
make
Ryan,
a way
we
to do
also
that?
forgot. Thank you. Okay, good. So I don't know if you can put conditional, but we can always vote you in next week or next month. How about Kandambi? He's on this committee too. Ryan?
Okay, Dan, as long as you're good with this, I mean, it's not a problem to move this forward. I mean, really, ultimately, it's your motion.
I just want to make a point, this committee isn't just to be on so we can talk about things. You're going to have to actually do things. So.
Yeah. Okay. Can we vote on it now? Is it ready to vote on?
I would say so to the chair. Yes.
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Okay, you second the motion. Okay. We've had lots of discussion. All in favor? Can we see your hands? Okay, I can't see everybody's hand. Okay, good. Okay. Any opposed? Nope. Motion carried. Okay. 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 We almost done here. Okay. 6.6 is a designation subcommittee verbal update. I almost feel like we've got this already. Dan?
Don't ask me. I'm not on the subcommittee anymore.
Okay.
I don't think that was part of the motion, Dan, so you're still technically on the subcommittee.
Oh.
We have nothing to report right now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the last one is the 6.7 Heritage Richmond Hill Committee format for the remaining remainder of 2018, 2022 term of council, which we know is the 2 meetings. The HRH committee confirmed that the format meetings going forward either be held in person or electronically for these remainder. Okay, so we have A or B. Do we stay on Zoom or do we go back to the council meetings? Helen, what's your choice? You're on mute. Helen, you're on mute?
Okay,
Sticking.
it's good now. Okay. I would vote to be in person.
Okay, so you're in person. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Jenica, what are your thoughts?
I'm good either way. I would like to meet you all in person, but I can't argue with the convenience of online. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, no. Kandambi.
I agree. It's exactly the same sentiments as Janica. I agree with you.
Jenica, okay. Okay. Counselor Shepherd.
I personally love in person, but I realize that it's not feasible for people to meet, so I'm going to vote for electronic.
Okay. Okay, Tom?
I'm good either way as well. The convenience of electronic is really good for me, but I'd be happy to come meet everyone in person as well.
Okay. Doris? Oh, you're on mute. Doris?
Yes, I'm having problems with my mouse as well. Either format works for me. I will make myself available in person, or I can continue doing this through Zoom.
Okay. Dan?
Surprisingly, I don't have an opinion on this. I would be happy with either.
Okay, who have I, Al?
Madam Chair, I'm going to have to say that I'm going to have to go with electronic and say just because the reality is I have family commitments that I won't be able to attend in person.
Okay. Tom?
I'm good either way. I agree with the other comments around the convenience.
Okay. So I've sort of been tallying here and I haven't put my 2 cents in, and I vote electronic because, and I didn't really elicit discussion on this, but you know, I have actually felt we've worked fairly well as a committee in this last 2+ years. And I don't see a lot gained and for doing it for 2 meetings. And yes, I would like to see you guys, but yeah. So you know, if we can have an end of the year party, maybe we do that. But if I tally the votes, we have 3 who definitely want to stay virtual. Helen would like to go, has voted for.
But I'm okay if you.
But you're okay either
Yes,
way, and
I'm
everyone
okay.
else is. So by that vote tallying, we'll keep electronic for the next 2 meetings. So I think we need a vote on that, but that seems to be where we're at. So Ryan, are you fine with that sort of discussion, how we did this?
To the chair, that's certainly fine. We just need someone to move the motion that essentially is that the Heritage Richmond Hill Committee confirm the format of meetings going forward be electronic or electronically for the remainder of the 2018 to 2022 term of council. If somebody wants to move that, then that would work.
Okay. Okay, Al had his hand up and he likes to make these motions, so I don't know, but okay. But Doris, I saw Doris's hand. So Doris has made the motion. And do we need a seconder for that? Nope. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. We can stay home. Okay, okay. That is it, right? I've lost my notes here, so I was scribbling in the back too much. Okay. Date of the next meeting is Tuesday, June 14th. So yeah, so mark your calendars. And with that, I think we can say that The meeting is adjourned.
No,
Oh, I forgot something. Okay.
we need someone to move to adjourn, and then a vote.
Okay.
I moved it.
Okay, that was unanimous. Helen is first on top of my screen, so let's do you, Helen. Okay.
Madam Chair, we have some members that are not present tonight. Perhaps just an email to them in case they don't happen to get the minutes before the next meeting, that they are aware that it's online.
To the chair, through the chair to member, we will, staff will send the confirmation about the meetings being held electronically to any member who isn't in attendance today.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. We adjourned the meeting. We're fine. Very good. Okay. Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
This is probably the longest meeting in the history of the
Madam Chair, you need to call the vote on the adjournment.
Oh, okay. All in favor? Yes. Okay. Okay. No opposed. Let's go. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion carried
Good
to
night,
adjourn.
everyone.
Good night,
Everybody.
everyone.
Nice to